Alright, there we go. Everything should be working like intended. We're just gonna jump right back into it. So have you seen all that stuff about those Stanley tumblers? I've been seeing everything around, and right, how, like, people are going crazy over them. Oh my god, the Stanley tumblers, right? I've seen that video at, like, Target, where people are just, like, rushing the aisle. And, like, some real American Black Friday shit, right? And I see all this, and I'm like, but is it actually, like, a good tumbler? Like, is it, like, a good bottle? Because I have it right here. It's, SM? What the fuck does that stand for? Simple Modern? I just have some... I bought this years ago. And I kind of fucking hate it, if I'm being honest. Like, I use it because it works, but I kind of hate it. So I'm like, if these things are, like, actually good, then I'd be, like, down. Like, oh yeah, you know what? Let's pick up a fucking thermos. Sure, it's a little bit more on the pricier side, but if it's good, then yeah. But I can't tell anymore. Like, yes, I know there was that one piece of viral marketing of the Stanley tumbler surviving a car fire. And it's like, okay, is that like, you know, like the Game Boy that survived the Gulf War? Is that kind of the type of viral marketing you're getting at? And I honestly don't know. But, like, yeah, I could use myself, like, a better, like, thermos or something. I know it's basic, but, like, most things are basic for a reason. But I don't know. Is it actually good, or is this some, like, fucking, like, limited edition sneakers that, you know, are only valuable because they're limited edition and not because they're actually, like, good? And I have no fucking idea. Yeah, I've just been seeing all over TikTok these past, like, 2 days. I mean, it's been before that, but, you know, like, especially, like, recently, it's just been, oh, look at this Stanley thermos. I mean, to be fair, I had a Stanley thermos that I used to take camping. And it's, like, one of the, like, old school, like, big ones. I have no fucking idea, but yeah, I've been seeing that everywhere. So how's everyone doing tonight? Welcome to Season 5. Our first episode. This is the first episode of the year. We actually made it through a complete season. Prior to this, you know, we'd done, like, half seasons. Technically, Season 1 is, like, I want to say it takes place over the span of, like, 3 years. Between, like, 2018 and the start of COVID, I think was the last episode of Season 1. But that, to be fair, back then, there used to be 12 episodes a year. Now there are 52, if not more. So we're back in Mario Wonder, because, you know, that's what we were playing last week, and, you know, I'm down to keep playing it. You know, my number 3 game of the year, I've definitely been thinking about that. Like, God, should I have made Pikmin my game of the year? Because I thought back to Tears of the Kingdom, and I was like, God, like, that moment where you find out where Zelda is still just fucking blows my mind. And I'm like, should I have made Tears of the Kingdom my game of the year? But I've been editing the Pikmin highlight reel. In the moment where I find out the water wraith is still in the game, I was so fucking excited. I'm like, oh, this is so exciting, right? And I still think it's really cool that it's there. So yeah, I don't know, but it's definitely something I was thinking about. So, for tonight, news story-wise, we don't have much. But technically, we have there's one, like, I'm gonna call it, like, a half story. We've got, like, yeah, like, one, like, half story about the Nintendo Switch 2. And then I meant last week, when we did our, like, year in review, I meant to go over my predictions that I made predictions for 2023. And I was like, oh, you know, we should go over them. And then I just completely forgot to, because, you know, the show went 4 hours long. But I still have those predictions. So I think tonight we'll just go over my 2023 predictions and see how well I actually did. And then from there, we do have a lot for WIBE. Percy Jackson, the entirety of the show What If, which all 10 episodes released on that, and I did watch them all. I have an anime to talk about, right? I mentioned last week how I hadn't seen much anime last year, and while I don't know if that's going to change this year, because, yeah, I mean, if I watch One Piece, then that's a lot, but that's also only one show, / manga, / whatever. So I don't know, we'll see if that changes any. But I do have an anime this week that I did watch. I even talked about it last week and was like, oh, I should get around to that. And then I actually just did. I was just like, hey, you know what? Fuck it. Let's actually get around to this. So, it should be a fine night. So, our first thing... Oh, shit. Yeah. So, our first thing is there was a story going around about the Switch 2 this week. Right? Because, we're in 2024. The Switch 2 is kind of like the next big thing. So, of course, there were stories like, hey, are we going to get the Switch 2 this year? What's going to happen? Nobody knows what's going to happen. So, of course, that became the big question. Like, what is going to happen? Are we going to get the Switch 2? So, there was a report that came out. Let me see if I can find it. I wrote it down somewhere. So this comes from Video Game Chronicles, and it's Sekrin Toto, who predicts that the Switch 2 will be out this year. It will cost $400. And according to him, the system will be an iteration of the Switch and not a complete revolution. So, the way I take it is it's like going from the Wii to the Wii U. Or the DS to the 3DS. Or, I guess, the Game Boy to the Game Boy Color. Right? Like, when they say not a revolution, that's what I expect. Right? Like, it's not the change from the GameCube to the Wii. Or the SNES to the N64. Right? Where those are, like, big changes. Right? 3D graphics. Whatever the hell the other one I mentioned was. The Wii was motion controls, right? Like, you have these big changes. So it's expected to not be that. And, I think that's a safe prediction. Because it would be kind of weird if Nintendo was like, oh no, we're going to do something entirely new, even though we have something super successful right now. Not that that has ever stopped them before, to be fair. But I will also kind of bring up the fact that usually when Nintendo sticks to holding pattern, it doesn't actually work out that well for them. I mean, everybody loves the Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo is one of the most solid gaming experiences you could possibly get. It was beaten by the Sega Genesis in terms of sales. The GameCube. People love the GameCube nowadays. It sold like hot garbage. But the GameCube was actually was Nintendo's strongest system at the time, anyways. Like, compared to the Xbox and the PlayStation 2, the GameCube was more powerful than both of those systems. But it still underperformed. Of course, there's a myriad of factors why it underperformed. But no, usually when Nintendo... I mean, yes, the DS is one of the best-selling systems of all time. 3DS did well, but it did about... I think it did less than half of what the DS did. So, like, if we're being completely honest here, holding pattern doesn't always work out for Nintendo. The Wii U was holding pattern, and it did terribly. To be fair, the Wii U had a lot of other problems outside of holding pattern, but holding pattern definitely didn't help the Wii U, if you know what I mean. So, I don't know. Of course, personally, I want holding pattern. I am fine with them just making, hey, it's the Switch, but it's better. That sounds hunky-dory to me. That's kind of exactly what I want. That is not at all what I expect to get, because it's Nintendo. Right? WND. Weird Nintendo decision. They do it all the time. If anything, it'd be weird that they don't do anything weird like that. And maybe that's why they do something weird? Is like, them not doing something weird is their weird thing? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, to be fair, between now and the Wii U, there are multiple presidents of Nintendo and multiple failed console, a decade's worth of games, some real bad ones in there, some real great ones as well. Some of Nintendo's best work has been in the past 7 years. But some of their worst work, or in the past 10, I mean. Some of their best and some of their worst has been in the past 10 years. So, we'll see. We shall see. But, the $400 price point, I do think the $400 price point is, it's a little higher than I'd want, honestly. I feel like the Switch, at its current niche of $300 and $350, it's basically cheaper than everything else out on the market, except for the Xbox Series S, which is, a budget console. Not that I have any problem with that. I'm actually perfectly fine with the Xbox Series S. For the amount of time I use my Xbox, I probably should have gotten one. But no, I get, right, the Xbox Series X has its purpose. The Switch Lite also has its purpose. And I would not be surprised with whatever the Switch 2 gets if a year after release they don't also make a Switch 2 Lite or whatever it is. I don't know, there's been a lot of things, right? Does it have an OLED screen? Does it have an LCD screen? I actually really do like the Switch's OLED screen. I haven't used it like an insane amount, but anytime I have had to use it, I have been thoroughly impressed with the Switch's OLED screen. So it would kind of suck to lose that, but I could see them doing that to keep prices down. Specs-wise, there's a lot of talk about is it going to be better or worse than a PS4 and an Xbox One? And, I don't know, to be fair, I kind of see it on parity with whatever the Steam Deck is doing. If not, maybe a little better than the Steam Deck. And I don't know anything about technical specs. I don't know. I think it would be weird if it was less powerful than the Xbox One. Because I feel like the Switch... it's been years now. It's been, 6 years? Coming up on 7? I remember people saying when the Switch launched that it was just slightly weaker than the Xbox One and the PS4, which at the time, those were, 5-year-old consoles. So I would think the Switch 2 would at least be better than that, but not as good as a PS5. And again, it doesn't really matter how powerful the thing is. It's what you do with it. And Nintendo makes great use of their hardware. It's just do other studios as well. Like, yeah, we have gotten some great stuff from, Big Red Button, or the guys who did the Witcher port. Yeah, that's not anything amazing, but I am still surprised at how good that Witcher 3 port is on Switch. It's not going to blow anyone's socks off, but it actually still does kind of impress me at what they were able to accomplish on something that runs, actually pretty well. So yeah, I see them holding pattern. There was a thing from Jason Schreier today. Do I still have that? I pulled it up earlier. So Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg put out an article, 5 big video game industry predictions for 2024. Go look up the article, you know, read it on your own time, but I'm just going to look at the Switch part today, because I think that's what he opens with. So his predictions for 2024, he says the Switch 2 will have an unexpected twist. The biggest gaming product of the year will be the new hardware from Nintendo company, which is widely expected to be released this fall. Many fans and pundits expect the Japanese gaming titan to ride the success of its previous console, the Switch, by releasing a similar new machine, perhaps called the Switch 2 or Super Nintendo Switch, with the same core functions, but more powerful guts. I wouldn't be shocked if that was the case, but it's nearly 4 decades since Nintendo entered the console business. It has always zigged when everybody else was expecting it to zag. From the controversial decision to stick with cartridges for the N64, a move that directly led to the rival Sony entering the console business, to pivoting to motion controls for the Wii, Nintendo's consoles have always surprised fans in some way. I expect the Switch successor to follow suit. That's not to say they will suddenly make it a VR headset or develop a home console to compete with the PS5. I think Switch 2 will be a portable console like its predecessors, but I also think it will come on with a strange quirk, be it unpleasant, charging fees for backwards compatibility with Switch games, or just plain weird augmented reality integration. My long-shot prediction, a more complicated console with a detachable screen for portable gaming. And, yeah, you know what, interesting predictions. Of course, he goes on to give his other predictions in that article. I recommend you read it for yourself. But no, I do think they are going to do something weird. The one thing I forgot to mention last week was VR. Nintendo has been a huge fan of VR for years now. I mean, they made that VR console that nobody likes to talk about, except for weird referential stuff like Tomodachi Life, which just shows you how great Tomodachi Life is. And part of me does actually kind of wish they would put Virtual Boy games on, like, the Game Boy Advance Online, or, like, you know, on Nintendo Switch Online's Game Boy functions. Because I feel like those games deserve to be preserved, and using Nintendo Switch Online to do that, and, you know, allowing us to change the color from fucking black and red to, like, a black and gray would be perfectly fine. I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. And you know, I'm curious about that Wario game that released on Virtual Boy exclusive. Fucking Nestor's Funky Bowling. Why not? Sure. But, no, I think VR... So, spoiler alert for a little bit later in the show. I did mess around with a PSVR 2 this week. Only for like a few hours, not very long. And I kind of really like VR. Like, it's not like... we're not at the point where it's like Ready Player One, right? It's not like the most amazing thing in the world. But I feel that it's very interesting. And I feel like it has so much potential. And I want to see more stuff with it. So I don't know. I could see Nintendo being like, yes, we're gonna do VR. Maybe the console launches out of the box, $400, but maybe there is like a VR headset that you can buy for like another $100 that you put the Switch 2 into. You strap it to your face, and you can use, you know, the Joy-Cons as controllers. Maybe part of this new headset has like cameras in it, so that way it's able to like track your movements and whatnot. I know at some point it gets very expensive. I don't know how they do it, but I think there's a way to do a Switch 2 VR that would be really neat. I think Nintendo could rival Half-Life Alyx when it comes to making a VR game. I really think they could pull out something amazing like that. It's just a question of will they do it. And I kind of hope they do, but we'll see. Other predictions I saw, Arlo put out a prediction video that I recommend you go watch. I enjoyed it. I don't agree with all of his points, But he has his idea for like an open face dock, and then making the Switch into like a display home screen that like tells you the time, tells you the weather, kind of like one of those like home devices that's sold by like Amazon or Goggle. I could see them doing something like that, right? Where like this kind of like, you know how like the Wii had like a news channel, kind of making your Switch into, you know, an Alexa or something like that. And I like the idea of an open face dock. I genuinely do think that's a great idea. So we'll see what Nintendo does with it. I also see with Arlo, he mentions that he thinks the system will have a camera, both front and back facing, to do like AR games. I could see that as well. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But no, I could realistically see the big gimmick being VR. I think that would actually be a great gimmick, because it takes a risk while not going too crazy, right? It's not anything insane, but there definitely is a risk there. Because, I mean, they did Labo VR, and to be fair, I never tried Labo VR, but I was always kind of curious about it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's interesting. I really do think that's interesting, and would love to see where they go with it. So, our next thing, Switch 2, not Switch 2, predictions from last year. So, right, I made a whole heap of predictions last year. So let's kind of see what I did. Or I meant to go over this last week, and then we just, forgot. So I think it makes sense to look back at it last year and see what I said. Season 3, episode 40, okay. So, I said the Switch Pro was not happening. Right? I said the Switch Pro is not happening, and instead Nintendo will be moving on to their next system in 2024. Right now, that kind of seems to be where things are going. It's not a guarantee they're going to go that way, but that just kind of seems to be where the cookie's crumbling at the moment. Like, if it ends up, right, like, it'd be weird if we didn't get a Switch 2 this year. All the writing is on the wall, and then there's all the leak stuff as well. All the rumors, I mean. I said Tears of the Kingdom was going to be fantastic. Guess what? It was fantastic. Pikmin 4, I did speculate that we might get open world Pikmin. We did not. But I think we're going to get there. I think Pikmin 5 is going to be our open world Pikmin game. At least that's what I want. And I feel like all the not writing is on the wall, but they've set the stepping stones for if they want to do that for the next Pikmin game, they can do that for the next Pikmin game. I also predicted that Pikmin 4 was going to be delayed. It was not delayed. I said Metroid Prime 4 was going to be revealed in 2023 with a 2024 release date. That did not happen. I mean, we did get Metroid Prime 1 remake, but no, I got that completely wrong. Right? I thought we were going to at least get the reveal this year or last year. Just not how it worked out. I predicted the Splatoon 3 DLC was the Pearl and Marina wedding. We still don't know about that. I know it doesn't seem like that's what it is, but yeah, no, that might be what it is. But to be fair, I'm going to count this as a wrong prediction, because I did expect it to come out last year, and it did get delayed. At least I'm pretty sure it got delayed. I don't remember them ever saying it was like, yep, it is officially delayed. But it was delayed, let's be honest here. I was expecting to come out at the game's 1 year anniversary. That didn't happen, it was delayed. So yeah, there's another wrong prediction for me. I really should be counting what I got right and what I got wrong. I predicted a new Mario game. I said either Mario Odyssey 2 or a new 2D game. We did get a new 2D game. I will take that. I predicted Advanced Wars was finally going to get a release date. It came out in April. That's correct. And then I predicted either Rhythm Heaven, Chibi Robo, Tomodachi Life. None of those things happened. We did get a new F-Zero game, But I didn't actually say new F-Zero game. I bet I said new F-Zero game the year before that. But this year, for 2023, I did not say new F-Zero game, so I'm going to count that against me. So that's 8 predictions. I got 4 right? So, okay, 50%. And I got all the easy ones as well. For non-Nintendo stuff, I predicted that Spider-Man 2 was going to come out, and it was going to fix some of the problems from the first game. Guess what? It came out, it fixed some of the problems from the first game. I really enjoyed it. You know, I know we're in the backlash phase, where, like, people now hate the game because backlash needs to exist, right? It's the internet. But no, I still really do enjoy Spider-Man 2. I predicted Starfield was going to be as broken as Cyberpunk. It was broken, but I do not think it was as broken as Cyberpunk. I did not... You know, it might... They might exist out there. But the amount of glitch compilations I saw for Cyberpunk versus the amount I saw for Starfield paled in comparison. And when I played it, I didn't have that many glitches. To be fair, I know there were people who played Cyberpunk and didn't have that many glitches either. So, I guess it's kind of to each their own. But at least for me personally, I didn't really have that problem. So I don't think it's as glitched as Cyberpunk. And to be fair, Cyberpunk actually did fix itself this year, which, I mean, good for it. Good for the people who really wanted to enjoy that game. And now they really can. I predicted Mean the Hollower was going to come out this year. Guess what? That didn't happen. So I moved the prediction over again another year. Guess what's still wrong? I predicted Silksong was going to come out in June of last year. That did not happen. I am, of course, instead now moving it up to June of this year. I now think Silksong is coming out in June of 2024. Will that happen? We'll have to wait and see, I guess. I don't know. I'm hopeful it does. I predicted Minecraft would stay the same, that people would still hate Minecraft because of its PR issues. I proposed another solution about how to solve their PR issues. Guess what? That didn't happen, of course, and people still hate Minecraft. Yeah, no, of course, shit hasn't changed. I mean, shit hasn't changed, and that's kind of the problem. Still a fun game. It's just, it's gotten stale, I guess. And them only doing one update. It's probably now going to be one. It used to be 2 updates a year. Probably now going down to 1 update a year. Oh, God, that sucks. Probably. Because, I don't know. I feel like we know nothing about the... Like, I know they've started implementing some of the trials, the trial chamber stuff. And I still feel like we know nothing about that update. Like, there are these, like, keys that we don't know nothing about. I know they took time off for Christmas. Good for them. We'll see what happens in the new year. People are not happy with that armadillo, which is exactly what we expected. No matter which mob we would have gotten, they were going to be unhappy. I am glad. So, one of the things I said about the April Fool's Days update last year was that there were a lot of features added to this April Fool's Day update that I was like, you know, you should just add these to the game. And they are actually doing that. In the April Fool's Day update from last year, there was a shrinking and a growing potion that have been in the mods for years, but it was like officially like in the default game. That has, as of the most recent snapshot, they have added commands that allow you to shrink or grow a player size. Fantastic. That's a great feature. I'm glad we did get that. I hope they keep doing more. I know they also added the ability to extend a player's reach. Fantastic. Hope they keep doing that. Oh gosh, I'm almost out of water already. Anything else? I had predicted that the MCU Phase 5 was going to be better, but things were going to get delayed. It was a mixed bag. Quantumania was not good, but Guardians of the Galaxy was good, and the Marvels was fine. I enjoyed the Marvels. I know some people didn't. I did. So, I mean, did it get better? I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was really good. So I'm going to say yes, kind of. And yes, stuff did get delayed. A bunch of stuff did. And I mean, we only have one MCU movie coming out this year. Right? The only one is Deadpool 3. I know we got some TV shows, including one like next week. And stuff got delayed. I talked about watching Bluey. That was like the first thing I did. I started Blue, like we did my game of the year on like December 31st. I started watching Bluey January 1st. And I finished it in like a week. Okay, like 2 weeks. Still, yeah, Bluey was great. And then I predicted I was going to read one of the Witcher books. That didn't happen. I still own all of those books. But I just didn't get around to reading them. Instead, I reread the Percy Jackson. And I read book 6 and a few other things. So yeah, that was my predictions for last year. You know, I got like a 50% correct. You know, that's bound to happen. I still have a better track record than Arlo. To be fair, I'm playing things. I usually play these things very safe. Alright, like Arlo goes fucking crazy. Nintendo Dragons. Was it Nintendo Dragons or Nintendo Dinosaurs? God, I don't fucking remember. It was a great idea, right? That sounds like a very fun idea, but it's just a wild prediction, man. So yeah. And then I guess that takes us to WIBE. So what have I been enjoying? Where do I start? So, okay, so for Christmas, because we also have all the Christmas stuff, because again, last year was Game of the Year and we didn't have time to talk about this stuff. For Christmas, I got some Legos. I was a Lego kid growing up. I was big into the Lego game, right? Legos meant the world to me. And then Minecraft came out. Well, eventually I did kind of grow out of Lego. Like, every Lego set I ever had got destroyed. Right? Like, that's just the truth. Like, I had, like, the Boba Fett ship, the Slave 1. It got fucking thrown against the wall. You know, life with brothers. You know how it is. But, right, like, I kind of grew out of Legos, and then Minecraft came out, and I just didn't care about Legos anymore, right? Like, I had Minecraft. I didn't need Legos anymore. But I got some Legos. I got specifically the plant sets. So there's, like, there's a bunch of Lego, like, botany sets. The first one is, like, it's like these black boxes with, like, succulents. Like, it's a succulent garden. There's, like, a cactus, a red flower, a few other flowers. I don't remember any of the names. And I got the set. And then the other one I got was the other plant set, which just came out in December. And it's, like, 3 types of plants. It's, like, there's, like, arid desert plants, carnivorous plants, and then I want to say, like, jungle plants or something like that. And I built that one first. I built the jungle set first, right, with the, like, potted plants. And I love these things, man. I had so much fun just sitting down, I put in some headphones, listened to a podcast, and for like an hour and a half, I just sat there building Legos. And it was so much fun. I had so much fun just building these Legos, getting myself a little Lego cactus, a Lego Venus flytrap, some pitcher plants. You know, it was such a good time. So I finished that, took like a quick like break to get like lunch or whatever. And then I made the other one. And while I do think the other set isn't as good as the newest one, it's still, you know, it's still a good set. And I still had a good time doing it. So yeah, I don't think I'm like fully back on the Lego game. Right? Like, I'm not gonna go all aboard spending thousands of dollars as Lego. Even though, you know, I do now have an adult income. Which, that's part of the reason why I'm definitely not going to get back into it. Is because, you know, I have an adult income that requires me to pay taxes and bills and whatnot. So I definitely can't get back into Lego. But just buying these 2 little potted plant sets, I had a great time. Loved these stupid little potted plants. if they make more of these potted plants, I will definitely be there. I know they have like a bonsai tree, and I know there's like a orchid or something like that, and I've definitely been like thinking of it, just because I had such a good time making these. I've talked before about the Magic Puzzle Company, how I'm not a big puzzle guy, but I bought puzzles on a Kickstarter from the Magic Puzzle Company, and they're neat. They're neat little puzzles. I spent a few days making them, and I'm like, okay. And then afterwards, you like do the magic trick, and it's neat. But puzzles just don't like. I want to be into puzzles, but they just don't really do it for me. But Legos do, and they're kind of like similar experiences. But I think the reason Lego hits where puzzles miss is because when I make a Lego, I have like a tangible thing. Like, I have this cute little cactus that I can like hold in my hand, I can admire, I can like turn around. But when I make a puzzle, it's just I have this picture to look at. Right? There's something about the tangibility of holding a Lego that I just really enjoy, that making a puzzle just doesn't hit for me. Of course, I still have another one of those puzzles that I have never made, so I'll have to do that at some point. But yeah, no, it was. I'm glad I did those Legos, and like I said, I also don't. Right now, they're just sitting on my kitchen table because I don't even know where the fuck I'm gonna put them. But yeah, they're neat to have. I need more water. So let's see. I played Pokemon. I know we've been doing, we just finished off the Indigo disc. We got the complete decks, thanks to some help from some people in chat. But, on my own, right, I've been playing through, we did that in Pokemon Scarlet, but on my own, I've been playing through Pokemon Violet. I finally beat it. I think I beat it either Christmas Day or the day after Christmas. I sat down and was like, you know what, I need to relax. Christmas is stressful, right? So I was like, I'm just gonna relax, I'm gonna play some Pokemon, and I beat it. I beat the chat. My final team was... I had a Glamora named Aster, a Mousehold named Mouseaholic, Chili the Skeledirge, Bingo the Palmot. I had 2 Bluey characters. I had Gojira the Baxcalibur, and I had... There was one other guy. I had one other guy. I cannot for the life of me remember who. It's something from one of the newer games. From... Aster... Oh, I had Laurel the Arbolive. Yep. I'd added Arbolive to my team and was like, you exist purely to beat the Water-type gym. Once I have beaten the Water-type gym, I don't need you anymore. But they were so fucking good. And they did... All of my, like... all of the clutch saves where it's like, oh, I'm back against the wall. Well, the only person I have left is Arbolive. I guess we'll just give him a shot. And then they fucking sweep. Yep. So Arbolive did really good. The only part, since beating the game, I did get rid of Palmot and got a Iron Valiant that I named Lucina. And that's it. That's been the one thing I added to the team. But other than that, I'm very happy with my team. I don't think I'm going to buy the DLC. Spending fucking... I mean, I probably will eventually, just to get the version exclusive, guys. But it's no real big deal to me, right? Just to get the fucking Raging Thunder and, just to get Iron Crown and Iron Boulder. Like, I'll probably do that at some point, just for my living decks. But other than that, I don't need it. I did want to work on my living decks project. I just didn't do that. At some point, though. I did do the, there's currently the Walking Wake and Iron Leaves. Raids are going on right now. And I did do those in Violet. So I was able to get a Walking Wake, and I was able to get an Iron Leaves. The Walking Wake one, I did on my, second try. Super easy. Just fucking Iron Hands just destroys it. For Iron Leaves, on the other hand, what a fucking pain in the ass. It took me an hour. And I was using a Gimme Ghoul, or not a Gimme Ghoul, a Gold Dingo, the evolution. And I was like, okay, I bred it specifically for this raid. And it just, oh my god, that raid was such a pain in the ass. But I did do it. I eventually got lucky. I got a good set of partners. And yeah, luck was on my side. Because it missed 2 or 3 hits. It all worked out really well, and I was able to beat it. And I did that earlier today. But no, I really do enjoy Scarlet and Violet. They have tons of problems. Definitely. Visually, they are very unimpressive. But goddammit, is Pokemon just fun to play. I'll admit, I have not watched the new there's a Pokemon stop-motion animated show on Netflix called, Pokemon Concierge. I have not watched it. I thought about watching it. And then I was just, I think I was having trouble getting signed into Netflix or something. And I was like, okay, I'll do this later. And then I just didn't get around to it. Let's see. The only other video game thing I got is, I mentioned, PlayStation VR. I did get some time this week to mess around with PlayStation VR 2. I played Five Nights at Freddy's. But that game still scares the shit out of me, man. Even though, normal Five Nights at Freddy's, whatever. I've done it, I've been to the mountaintop and back, easy as hell. Okay, maybe the games aren't always easy, but I've done 420 before. I've done is it 820 or 1020 in FNAF 2? Either way, I've done it. But there's something about just putting that in VR that just scares the shit out of me. But no, I do enjoy it, right? I do enjoy it. I definitely didn't get enough of FNAF 2, right? The Help Wanted 2, to really make a good judgment on things. I only checked out a few of the games. Didn't really, I feel like the menuing's a lot less special in the second one. Where you're on a computer and you're opening files. I don't know, there was a lot of showmanship in the original that I just feel isn't in the second one. I don't know, maybe it changes as you go on, I don't know. But I did that, and I had a good time with it. From there, I played What the Bat, which, this was the one I really got into. So if you've ever played What the Golf, which I did play, What the Golf had a few New Year's levels that I did play. They were okay. But, they did a VR game called What the Bat, where you're a girl with bat hands, baseball bats. And, you're just going through your life, doing a series of challenges. In typical What the, golf fashion, things get escalate and get, weirder and weirder as they come up with, increasingly strange challenges. Right, and you do all sorts of things with your baseball bat hands. You're, driving around, I don't remember if you drive around an RC car, but I know for a fact you drive around a Roomba. A lawnmower Roomba. You play some pinball. You shoot some laser guns at, a carnival. You do some graffiti. All sorts of things. So, you hit baseballs into your neighbor's lawn, just ruining his life. I got the platinum. It honestly only took me maybe 3 hours at most. Real quick in and out thing. But I had a good time with it. I'm not gonna say it's the pinnacle of VR or anything. But it kinda reminds me of Job Simulator. That was hey, this is Alchemy Labs, and this is their little game to show off VR. And, it was just, it's not anything, amazing. but it's just a good, fun time. That's kind of what the bad for PSVR 2 is for me. Right? It's just like a good little time to show off, like, hey, this is what PSVR 2 can do. I know it's not made specifically for PSVR 2. Like, I guess the thing has eye tracking, and like, I didn't play a game with eye tracking. To be fair, I didn't play Horizon. Maybe sometime in the future I'll get around to that. But no, it was just, you know, some very casual what the bat. And yeah, I had a great time with it. I did. Speaking of Job Simulator, it has a sequel called Vacation Simulator that I guess came out. I don't know if it came out before or after the studio was bought by Valve. Yeah, it's such a weird studio, man. They did Job Simulator. Then they worked with the Rick and Morty team to do the Rick and Morty VR. Then I think they got bought by Valve. Released their own, Vacation Simulator as a sequel to Job Simulator. And then I'm pretty sure they worked on Half-Life Alyx. Probably not in that order. Like, I don't know if they did Half-Life Alyx before Vacation Simulator or after Vacation Simulator, but I know it happened at some point. So yeah, that was real interesting. But it's a lot of the same as Job Simulator. Right, you're going to these levels, you're doing weird stuff with the robots, but you know, it's very charming. It's very fun. I enjoyed Vacation Simulator. For what little I checked out, like there's like a beach world. I checked out that. There's tons of other stuff in that game that I didn't get to. I played, and then the last thing I checked out was Kill It With Fire. So Kill It With Fire was a game that I originally saw as just like, oh, you're hunting down spiders. I think they're making a sequel where it's like multiplayer, where like some players play as the spiders and other play as the exterminator. It's a fun concept. And I was like, oh yeah, VR Kill It With Fire, sure, that might be fun. So I messed around with that a little bit. Now, I didn't do too much. There are definitely points where it's like jerks you, and I get that feeling of like motion sickness. But other than that, honestly, I didn't really have any of the motion sickness. Nope, never really dealt with it. With the exception of like just a sudden jerk that you weren't expecting. It's like why I can't do Minecraft VR. Because for some, like my PlayStation controller will, because, I played it on the original PlayStation VR. And my controller has like drift. And just the drift just randomly going on and just fucking jerking you in a random direction is super disorienting. But no, I had a good time with PSVR 2. I didn't do a lot. There's still tons of things I'm sure I can do. Right? Like Among Us VR, Horizon, Tetris Effect. Right, tons of shit. I know Astrobot's Playroom's not on the new VR, which I do have to go back to the old one to do that, because I still have never played Astrobot's... it's not Playroom, it's Rescue Mission. I've never played Astrobot's Rescue Mission, but I really do want to one of these days, because I know it's really good. Yeah, and that's all the games I've played. I guess it was kind of an eventful Christmas. So I guess that takes us into television. So let's start with Percy Jackson. So Percy S. Jackson. So episodes 3 and 4, because we didn't talk about it last week. Episode 3 was all about the quest. Right, they're going on the quest. They get attacked by the Fury on the bus. And then they end up at Antium's Emporium, where, they meet Medusa and they kill Medusa. It's interesting. They do make some interesting changes. Like, okay, so there's a great thing that someone who pointed out on TikTok. Whereas, like, Medusa when retelling her story, tells it as, she's the victim. That she was being punished by Athena for something Poseidon did. That she says in the show that, she's not like Annabeth. She was Annabeth. And I think that's really interesting. Especially because then you go to episode 4, And what happens? Annabeth is punished for the actions of Percy by her mother. Right? A son of Poseidon punishes... Athena punishes her daughter for the actions of a son of Poseidon. Right? It's fucking cyclical. That's actually very clever. I really do like that. But yeah, no, I think the whole thing where, Medusa invites them in, gives Percy a chance to like, hey, let me just kill them and that'll get you out of this quest. And then, eventually he reveals that the reason why Medusa was making that request and everything, and the reason why he's been like so tense around them is because the prophecy says he will be betrayed by a friend. Which, yeah, fair point, right? The fact that he doesn't want to keep them he's keeping them at arm's length. The reason he chose Annabeth is because he could never see a world in which he calls Annabeth friend, which is definitely not how it plays out in the book. Right? I think that's very good. I do. So, my biggest problem with the show right now, though, is Percy. I don't know what it is, but they just made Percy feel so whiny. That's kind of how I would describe Percy in this show. He feels kind of like whiny, like he's constantly like complaining. And he's like, oh, well, we should hold a vote on things. Right? And like, technically it makes sense. Right? Percy being a whiny 12-year-old makes sense because he is a whiny 12-year-old. But like I guess I'm just used to older, seaweed brain, like don't really ask questions, just kind of be brave Percy, that seeing him as like a whiny 12-year-old, like it makes sense, right? Like a 12-year-old in this situation would be reacting the way he's reacting. But that's just not how I think about Percy. So like that's been the first 2 episodes where I'm just kind of like, Percy's very fucking whiny. Look, as the show goes on, though, he is getting better. The point at the end of episode 4 where he basically sacrifices himself to the Manticore Chimera? I think it's Chimera, actually. To save Annabeth and Grover. I think that is very classic Percy mentality. So, yeah. I think, he'll eventually get there. He just starts off whinier than I remember. I do like the bit, where it's like, oh, well, if you send Medusa's head to Mount Olympus, they'll think you're impertinent. And he's like, yeah, I am impertinent. That was good. We see Lin-Manuel Miranda as Hermes. I get it. Everyone was like, if he fucking sings, I'll end it all. Alright, I'll fucking end this show. And then, of course, he, like, mumbles a line, which, that song, Between the Moon and New York City, was stuck in my head for, like, the next 3 days after that episode. I definitely got that title wrong. The title of the song. But no, I think it was fine. And then the next episode, we see Echidna on the train, which I do like their portrayal of Echidna here. Right? Her just talking about how she's, a loving mother who wants the best for her kid. I really think the woman who they have playing Echidna really sells it. And then they go to... I was trying to remember, why do they go to the St. Louis Arch in the book? And I cannot for the life of me remember why they go. I cannot remember. But no, their reason in the show of being like, no, the Arch is a temple to Athena, so Athena will give us protection, and then Athena betrays Annabeth. I think that's a very good explanation. They do there's a point where, like, they go in there, and there's, like, a museum I've never been to the St. Louis Arch, so I wouldn't know, but there's, like, a museum at the bottom with, like, a bunch of Native American stuff, and, like, Grover's trying to make a point, and then Annabeth kind of brushes her aside. I don't know. The show's always had, like, a weird thing about that, right? Whether it be, Hitler was a son of Hades, and, demigods caused World War II, or the whole fact that, the Romans fought on the Confederate side. Like, that's just always kind of been a weird aspect of the series, rectifying the terrible things humans have done by, putting them in this magical world with gods. And I guess the show's staying on series traditions, so sure. But it was weird. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. Right? I think we've still got, 4 episodes left. I think the show finishes up by the end of the month. I am definitely excited to see where it goes by then. But yeah, it's definitely... I felt like the first 2 episodes were so strong, and now the, second and third episode, or the third and fourth episodes here, just haven't been as strong. But, I guess I'm still enjoying myself. They're doing a lot of things right. Let's see. Next up, I watched the new South Park. There was a new South Park, which I had not seen any advertising for. And after I watched the episode, I was like, okay, I kind of see why they didn't advertise this at all. But they start off by making fun of Logan Paul's Prime energy drink. So, I have heard that, no, this is like what they're talking about, like kids just being obsessed with Prime, using it as like a status symbol. I have heard that's all true. I want to say I've seen a TikTok from like an elementary school teacher talking about that. But, they call it cred, and there's a whole thing like, oh, if you don't have cred energy drink, you don't have any cred at all. I have tried Prime. I tried it once. It was fine. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was fine. It was an energy drink. Energy drinks aren't really my The only time I really drink energy drinks is, like, when I'm, like, sick. I usually get, like, a Gatorade or something, just because that usually helps. Or at least it feels like it helps. It's all fucking... I do it because that's what my mother did when I was young. So, placebo at this point. But placebos do work, so what you gonna do? But now I gotta get a Stanley thermos. Hashtag not sponsored. But, so that's the A plot. The A plot is all about Cartman and, Cartman, Butters, Tweek, which Tweek is the perfect character to be in an episode like this. They're trying to start their own, like, cred group. It's like an affinity group, right? Cartman's being Cartman. And he's trying to start his own group, and he wants to get, Clyde involved. But, Clyde doesn't, right? His mom won't let him get the energy drinks. And then you find out that all these, like, products are being pushed by companies, which, like, obviously, right, they're marketing towards kids. And then I was expecting, like, oh, who's marketing towards kids? Right? Who wants this power over children? And my first thought was, okay, it's either Disney or it's the Catholic Church, right? That's where I was like, oh, that's where they're going to go with this. No, instead, they do a more interesting twist of it's Clyde's mom was using these influencers to try to get to her son. And then at the end, he's like, oh, can I call you mom? Yes. Well, fuck you, mom. Great. That was funny. I do think I liked this episode more than the previous one. But so at least the A side. The A side of the episode, right, all about the cred energy drinks, I think is good. The B plot of this episode is Randy learning about OnlyFans and trying to start his own OnlyFans. Very classic Randy. Like, that's totally what I would expect from Randy. My problem is, and this isn't me being a prude, at least I don't think it is. For a majority of the episode, you can see Randy's dick. Right? Like, Randy's dick is out on screen most of the time. And because this didn't air on, like, Comedy Central or anything, because this aired on, Paramount Plus or Peacock or whichever streaming services it's on, they just legitimately show Randy's dick. And it's like, okay, you know, I guess because you can get away with it, you do it. But yeah, I was. It reminds. A few years ago, I rewatched American Dad on like Netflix because I think American Dad is better than Family Guy. Hot take. But when I rewatched American Dad, there was an episode early on where, you know, in the original it was censored, but on Netflix, no, it was uncensored and you can see Stan's dick. And I was like, what the fuck? I remember being so caught off guard by that. But in this, it's like, okay, they do some funny stuff with it. Right? Just him constantly having his dick out. And they show it all. They do some funny stuff. But yeah, it's just, the B plot, it's very typical South Park. But I'm like, I don't need to see this. I don't need to see Randy's dick. So yeah, that was an episode. But the Creed stuff I thought was good. You know, them killing Logan Paul or whichever one of the Paul. I think it was Logan. You know, like, good on them. I don't know. This is one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I could see them, like, I could see this being the opening to, like, an entire season's worth of episodes about, like, social medias and brands and whatnot. Back during, like, one of the good seasons. Yeah, I guess back during one of the good serialized seasons. Because, again, I stand by. South Park was good until season 20. Seasons 1 through 19 are good. They just kind of fall apart after that. And they just never really recovered. Yeah, they have some decent episodes and some good jokes here or there. But I feel like it just had... The election just ruined them. And we're going into an election this year. We're going into the last year of America. Like, fuck, man. It really sucks. And then the other thing I watched was What If. So What If, right, they were releasing an episode of a day. I want to say they started on like the 20th and finished maybe on the 21st, right, ran through Christmas up until New Year's. And I did sit down and watch them all. And I think it's okay, you know. Like, I don't hate it or anything. It's just kind of okay. Like, I've definitely seen better stuff. You know, I feel like the show What If had so much potential. And maybe it was just... maybe it had... the idea had more potential than the actual show. I know part of it is down to the writing. That they're just not coming up with as creative ideas as we want. Like, the one idea everybody wants is what if the other side got snapped. But even if they do that storyline, I don't actually expect that episode to be that good. I just think the concept of What If is just inherently flawed. It sounds good on paper. It's just an inherently flawed concept. That has brought us some okay episodes, but I don't think it'll ever reach that amazing that we want it to be. That conceptually it should be. Because I just think the concept is inherently flawed. But, so for the second season, you know, I might as well, let me just pull up an episode list real quick. Oh my god. How long have we... Okay, yeah. Okay, so episode 1 was What If Nebula joined the Nova Corps. I think this was the worst episode all season. So this is like a detective episode where Nebula's trying to find out who killed Yondu and, you know, ends up unraveling this conspiracy about, right, like what's right with Xandar, and Xandar's been in like isolation for like 5 years now. I don't give a fuck. Like, if I'm being honest, I don't give a shit about any of this. You know what this episode should have been? This episode should have been a backdoor pilot to a Howard the Duck show. You know, Howard the Duck is in this episode. He's voiced by Seth Green. And he just runs like a casino. Like, no, fucking Howard the Duck is a detective. He should have been the detective of this episode. Basically, they should have switched Howard the Duck and Nebula. It should have been a very comedic episode. You know, add in some of that. You know, Howard the Duck is one of the worst movies of all time. But people supposedly like the comics, or else why the fuck do they keep making them to this day? So I think this should have been a Howard the Duck episode about him solving some sort of crime, and secretly this was an entire, like, backdoor to, like, a backdoor pilot to a Howard the Duck show. That's what this episode should have been. Instead, we got this weird Nebula episode, and I just don't give a shit about Nebula. I don't give a shit about Yondu. When we find out what's actually going on, I just don't care. Like, seriously, I don't care at all about any of this. The one laugh it did get out of me was, fucking... So it's Groot, Howard the Duck, and Meek? Right, the bug person. Oh, it's... Okay, so it's Groot, Meek, and, the fucking rock guy from Thor Ragnarok in Love and Thunder. Korg. And they're called Rock, Paper, Scissors. Right? That was funny. That got a laugh out of me. Other than that, I did not give a shit about the rest of this episode. I think it's the worst episode in the season. I could see some people disagreeing with that, especially with some of the stuff that's coming. But no, I think it's the worst episode in the season. The second episode, so it's What If Peter Quill Attacked Earth? And it's an alternate timeline where, you know, Yondu actually delivers Peter Quill to his father, right, Ego. And Ego starts his plan to take over the world, right? He sends Peter to Earth to destroy it. So, in the 1980s, the Avengers have to assemble. I think this is a genuinely good idea, right? Seeing the Avengers, like, hey, based on the characters we have in this universe, what would the Avengers look like in the 1980s? So you have King T'Chaka, you have Hank Pym, who has just recently lost his wife, you have Bill Foster as Goliath, you have, the original Captain, right, Captain Marvel, the one who's, you know, testing the Tesseract to make her, like, hyperspeed plane. She doesn't have superpowers, but, you know, she's got her hyperspeed plane. You've got her, you've of course got, the old Howard Stark, you've got old Peggy Carter, and you've got the Winter Soldier. Now, I don't know why they did the Winter Soldier and not the Red Guardian. I feel like the Red Guardian would have been a more interesting choice for the episode, especially because what they do with Bucky, where he has to, like, make the moral decision to not kill Peter, and, you know, they're like, hey, think of Steve Rogers, right? What would he do? I don't know, I just feel like we didn't really need Bucky, especially because we're never going to come back to the story. So, you know, having, having Red Guardian, I think, would just be more interesting. Because that is definitely one of the things I will say about the season, is I think most of the... you can definitely tell these episodes are made years in advance, because a lot of, like, the recent stuff that happened in the MCU just isn't addressed in this at all. Right? Like, I think the farthest thing they reference is Shang-Chi. They don't reference... they reference Black Widow and Shang-Chi, and that's about it. No Eternals... No, nothing that's happened in the past few years, right? But yeah, no, I think the Avengers of the 1980s... Oh, Thor is also there. Thor also shows up at one point, because you find out, Asgard has also been destroyed. But, you know, they eventually are able to capture Peter. Young Hope Van Dyne ends up talking to him, and they eventually realize that, oh, he's just a kid, and he's there for something. I can't remember why he's even there, but he doesn't want to work with his dad, and then you get an epic fight between Ego and the Avengers until Peter eventually comes in after being talked down by Hank Oh, he's there to see his mom's grave. That's it. And then, of course, like in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Ego reveals that he killed the mom, and that pisses off Peter. So, but, and then eventually it's like, hey, guess what? We'll just be the Avengers, because, worlds still need avenging. I honestly think it was a fine episode. Yeah, setting the Avengers in the 1980s, sure, why not? I actually think it made for a pretty decent episode. Episode 3 was What If Happy Hogan Saves Christmas? This is their parody of Die Hard. I say it's a parody of Die Hard, but I actually do really like seeing, I don't think it's Sam Rockwell who's voicing him, but to see the character again, oh fuck, what's his name? Hammer, Justin Hammer. To see Justin Hammer again, and that he's infiltrated Stark Towers on Christmas Eve, and is just kind of fucking up their shit. Like, honestly, you could have put this episode in like the mainline MCU timeline, 199999, and I would have been like, yeah, that fits. The one weird thing they do is they make Happy Hogan into a Hulk, and they never make a Hulk Hogan joke somehow. Yeah, somehow they went the entire episode without making a Hulk Hogan joke. At least I don't think they did. I don't know. But right, it's Happy Hogan who gets infected with the Hulk virus, and he's trying not to, like, Hulk out. Darcy and Maria Hill are there, and the Avengers are meanwhile off they're volunteering on Christmas. So, you have Tony is pretending to be Santa, and Natasha's, like, infiltrating, like, a Swan Lake performance or something like that. It's probably the Nutcracker, honestly. I think it's just a cute little episode. Like, for a Christmas special, it's not anything special, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fun. After that, we get the episode that was cut from season 1, which is What If Iron Man Crashed on, Sakaar? It's Iron Man, but he doesn't make it through the wormhole at the end of the first Avengers, and he ends up on Sakaar. I actually like this episode. They changed the Grandmaster's game to being, instead of a fighting tournament, it's instead a racing tournament. And, Iron Man's there on Sakaar to, and he's like, okay, well, we gotta free the people here on Sakaar. He teams up with Valkyrie and Korg. And Gamora's there trying to kill him as revenge for, him beating Thanos. And I was like, I actually genuinely enjoyed this episode. I think the writing on Tony Stark is actually pretty on character. Like, this is totally, what I'd, based on how they've written the character up to this point, I do actually feel like they did a decent job capturing his character. I like the death race stuff, I'm a fan of Fast and the Furious. Car death races are an inherently fun idea. And I feel like this episode did a decent job at capturing that. No, I was genuinely surprised with how much I enjoyed it. Again, is it anything amazing? No, but, for what it is, it's a good time. Then we get the Captain Carter one. Okay. I don't hate Captain Carter as much as other people do. I think of that one girl on TikTok who's constantly, who is Jewish and hates her because Nazis, and I honestly can't even remember. Right, I don't hate Captain Carter inherently. I thought the original Captain Carter episode in What If was fine. I thought her showing up in Multiverse of Madness was also fine. Right, it's nothing great, but it was fine. But they fucking jerk her off in this season. And I'm so fucking sick of her. Like, honestly, I get, if she only had appeared in this one episode, I would have been like, okay, whatever. Clearly you're gonna do Civil War in season 3. Fine, sure. But she shows up 3 fucking times this season. And we just didn't need that. We don't need this much Captain Carter. I've seen a lot of people say she's an industry plant. Right, she's basically the character equivalent of an industry plant of Marvel just trying to make her a thing. And yeah, no, I see that. Especially with how much she shows up in this season. Yeah, it totally feels like they're just forcing her character into being popular. And nobody cares. So the Captain Carter episode this season, It's basically a retelling of not Falcon in the, it's a retelling of, Captain America, Winter Soldier, but they've mixed in the plot of Black Widow as well. They're basically doing both movies at the same time. So it gets a little confusing. But it's basically, hey, guess what? Steve Rogers as the Hydra Stomper is still alive. I kind of wish they had explained that they had also been freezing him the same way they were freezing Bucky, but instead they're like, no, the suit's keeping him alive. That he's practically attached to the suit now. I don't give a shit. But eventually they find him early on. Eventually, through a series of events, they go to they eventually capture him. He reveals that, he was trained in the Red Room, and he'll take them to the Red Room. And then so they go to this weird, like, Camazotz from A Wrinkle in Time. They go there, and they eventually, Captain Carter and Steve Rogers have this, like, moment to reconnect. They play the music from the end of Endgame, right? And it's like, oh, everything's gonna be good. And then the floating Red Room shows up. The person in charge of the Red Room is the mom from Black Widow. She's back in this episode, but she's the villain this time. And so, right, you find out that Steve is still mind-controlled. But, they then go from doing the plot of, right, The Winter Soldier, Captain America 2, to doing the plot of Black Widow, where, they have to they have to destroy the Red Room, free Steve, all that. And eventually, Steve destroys the Red Room with his Hydra Stomper. But, he's still out there somewheres, and then we're gonna go find him. And then at the very end of the episode, he gets, like, Captain Carter gets, like, pulled away. And it's like if they were getting... I don't think What If needs crossover episodes. Right? I feel like the crossover episodes are kind of inherently flawed. Because I don't give enough shits to, like, actually see this. I think they're okay, we just don't need them. And so them setting up another crossover episode, I'm like, really? We're going to do this again? But they are. From there, we get What If Kahori Reshapes the World. An episode that I think is good. It's alternate reality where Asgard is destroyed and the Tesseract falls from Asgard down into a lake in North America. And eventually this, like, lake, it becomes like a portal to another world. And the native Mohawk people, right, basically treat it not as their, like, afterlife, but it's, right, the next world to move on to. And Kahori is, dealing with the Spaniards, right? The Spaniards have invaded looking for the Fountain of Youth, and they think this lake is the Fountain of Youth. That's interesting. What I really like about the episode, they don't use a single word of English, right? All the Native Americans are speaking, right, their language. Even, the white man, they use the Spaniards, and the Spaniards only speak Spanish. There's not a word, right? Everything is subtitled in this episode. And I like that. They didn't have to do that. Like, normally when I think of shows like these, they won't go through that effort. But no, they actually do, and I think it works. Kahori, of course, goes into the other world, finds out she's actually super skilled, and then has to convince her people to, come back, save them, right? The people in the other world to save the people in our world from the Spaniards. And then they use their powers to go to the Queen of Spain and tell her, like, hey, if you want war, we will destroy you. Effectively creating a new timeline. I know we've seen stories like this before, where it's like an alternate reality where, the Native Americans are able to defeat the Spanish or the English. And so I'm sure that story, you can find that. But, like, I thought it was fine. Of course, that ends with, Doctor Strange showing up and recruiting Kahori for whatever he's planning, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, I thought it was fine. Is Kahori an industry plant? I know, right, Carter definitely is. I don't know if this character is. I know we're always like, oh, it's this is the MCU's first ever original hero, right? This character has no basis in the comics. And, I'm fine with that. If they want to do something new, you might as well experiment here before, throwing her into the mainline series. If you even do that at all. But no, I thought this episode was fine. From there, instead of doing our next episode in the series, we instead get, What If Hela Found the 10 Rings? An episode that I was like, oh god, really? We're doing this? And then I actually think is fine on execution. Basically, it's how, like, at the beginning of Thor, the first Thor movie, how Odin strips Thor of his powers, and is like, whoever wields this hammer, be they worthy, will get the powers of Thor. Well, it's that again, but this time he did it with Hela. Right? Odin, right, and Hela have that clash, but instead of banishing her to the underworld, he instead banishes her to Earth, and is like, oh, whoever be they, to show mercy, be they worthy, will have the powers of Hela, right? Basically, he just gives her powers this Thor treatment. So, instead of her, right, in Thor, they landed in New Mexico. In this, she lands somewheres in Asia, and she meets, the Mandarin. She doesn't get along with the Mandarin, because, they're, like, fighting and everything. He's the Mandarin. And then she eventually ends up in Kylon. Oh god, is that the place from the Danny Rand thing? She ends up there after, right, going to Kunlun, or whichever one it was. I feel like Kunlun is the Iron Fist place. I cannot remember. She eventually gets training from then. There she learns, mercy and love and all. She goes through the same arc as Thor does. How, like, in the first season of What If, how the Captain Carter episode was like, hey, what if we just did Captain America, but slightly different? That's kind of what this episode felt like, where it was like, hey, what if we just did Thor, but slightly different? And then eventually, Odin invades Earth and is fighting the Mandarin, so Hela has to go and rescue him, and after rescuing him, she shows mercy, which earns her back her powers, and then they go on to, save the multiverse and all that. This episode is completely unrelated, right? Like, the episodes are already setting up their big crossover. This episode had nothing to do with that. And honestly, I'm kind of fine with that. I'm fine. The less connected these episodes are, I think, the better. Because the next episode, episode 8, this episode did not need to be connected to a previous episode. I actually think it being connected to a previous episode is probably the worst thing about it, if you know what I mean. If that makes any sense, right? It being connected is by far the worst thing about the episode. So it's what if the Avengers assemble in 1602? And it starts off, Hela is Queen of England, Thor is her younger brother, Loki is doing Shakespeare, which I find funny, because I know Tom Hiddleston played Iago. And throughout the episode, he's constantly talking about how, Billy Shakes there is working on his new play with his character Iago. It sounds super interesting. And I'm like, oh, funny, because he played Iago. I get that. I think that is funny. Because yes, Tom Hiddleston did play Iago. I don't know if it's Tom Hiddleston doing the voice acting in the show, but the joke is there. So yeah, from that, this was Tom. Yeah, he was Iago, right? Or was Ewan McGregor Iago? Fuck, I don't remember. It's been a while. One of them was Iago. From that, Hela dies, because you find out, basically these tears are happening, and people are getting sucked into them. And then you find out Captain Carter shows up in this episode. And I'll be honest, I did not need Captain Carter in this episode. The Scarlet Witch brought her into this universe to try to, save it. That was entirely unnecessary. I did not need Captain Carter in this episode. I think the premise of this episode is good enough that it stands on its own. You did not need Captain Carter here to, support the episode. In my opinion, it's completely unnecessary. Instead, this should have been... You should have instead had the main character be, even fucking Hawkeye would have been fine. Not Hawkeye. It should have been Bucky. Bucky should have been the main character. Like, Bucky should have been the one misplaced from time. That would have been more interesting. And, like, it was Bucky who had, like, memories of the previous world, and they were trying to, like, figure out what's going on. That would have been interesting. And then, because eventually Captain Carter has to flee because Thor wants her head. So she goes and she finds, oh God, what is it? It's Robin Hood, but it's Captain America. Robin's... I don't know. It's Captain America, but as Robin Hood, and he's working with Bucky and Ant-Man. But for some, even though Robin Hood is, you know, famously associated with a bow and arrow, there is no Hawkeye in this episode. Why the fuck wasn't Hawkeye here? Like, that would have been perfect, but whatever. Right? You could have gotten rid of Captain Carter, replaced Bucky with Hawkeye, and I think the episode would have worked great. But, so you have them, so on one side, right, you have Thor, Happy Hogan, Wanda, and like one or two other characters. And then on the other side, you have Carter working with Tony Stark, who is like a madman, right, inventor. You have, right, the Robin Hood, Captain America, Bucky, Thor. You find Thor as the Man in the Iron Mask. There's a bunch of references to, like, you know, stories like that. Man in the Iron Mask, Shakespeare, Robin Hood, tons of shit like that. It's all really fun. I kind of wish they had just let this episode be on its own. And, you know, work off of that. I think it's a good premise. Because eventually, right, they're trying to find out, like, what's wrong with the timeline. And because basically Captain Carter figures out that two timelines have gone on top of each other. And that's why they're destroying each other. That, right, 1602 and 2018 are merged. And you find out that, oh, what happened was, you know, when Steve attacked Thanos in Infinity War, he grazed the Time Stone, which sent them all back in time. I do also love in this episode, there's a bunch of references to other villains. Like, Red Skull shows up in the episode. What's his name? The Yellow Jacket shows up. Like, that's honestly a decent idea. Like, I know there's been the idea for a what if episode where it's like, what if the villains won and had to stop Thanos instead? I think that is also a good idea for a what if episode. And the fact that they brought, like, I don't give a shit about the Red Skull winning, but, like, they're, like, again, I loved how the MCU did Zemo. Right? So I'd love to see some shit like that. Like Zemo, the Aldrich Killian, the fake Mandarin. Right? Hela, any one of those characters. Loki, it'd be Loki. But right, I'd love to see, like, what if the villains had to fight Thanos? But no, I genuinely do feel like this Avengers in 1602 has some good ideas, and the episode could have totally stood on its own if it wasn't for Captain Carter. I'm not going to say Captain Carter ruins the episode, because eventually, right, you find out that in this timeline, Peggy is dead. And then you eventually find out that to save the timeline, they basically have to kill Steve. And I think that's good. I feel like that's, right, you get that emotional crux in there. Especially after everything that happened with Captain Carter not being able to end up with her, Steve. But I still think it was entirely unnecessary. Instead, go with the legendary bromance that is Steve and Bucky. I feel like that would have been much stronger. But yeah, it's a whatever episode. And it ends with Captain Carter being stuck back in 1602 while all the Avengers are sent home. But then, hey, guess what? Doctor Strange shows up. So the final big crossover episode is, right, what if Strange Supreme made a choice or something like that? And it's basically, right, Doctor Strange, you know, the evil one, goes and saves Captain Carter. And is like, hey, before I send you back, can you go do an errand for me? I've been collecting, like, multiversal threats, and one of them escaped. I need your help to stop it. So, like, that's the setup until you find out the multiversal threat he collected was Kahori, and that, as a matter of fact, right, that Strange is not collecting multiversal threats to save the multiverse, but he's instead trying to recreate his own multiverse. Right? That he's still technically evil Doctor Strange, and he has succumbed to his evil and is doing anything to save Christine. So, you know, you do get some fun moments in this episode. I love, right, when they start fighting against Doctor Strange, and she, like, throws her shield up, unleashing all these multiversal threats, you get some really fun stuff in there, you know? Like, I love seeing just all these characters from previous episodes fight each other. Yeah, it's not even previous episodes. Just like, hey, look at, right, we're going to see Thor fight this or that. We're going to see Hela. We're going to see Thanos get snapped by Infinity Ultron, who they then defeat. Right? It's a whole thing, and then it ends. Like, I saw someone describe this as, like, this is the type of thing you would come up with if you were playing with your action figures. Now, I'm pretty sure they meant that as an insult, but honestly, that's kind of what I want from this show. It's just like, hey, if you were to play with your action figures where you could do any and everything, what kind of things would you do in creating a character with the power of every other character is kind of something you would do, right? Like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Because Captain Carter and Kahori team up, and they're like, oh, she's got Hela's crown. Kahori has Mjolnir. They have, like, a bunch of swords. They have a bunch of shit. And they're all using it to fight, you know, evil Doctor Strange, who's turned into this giant nightmare demon. And it's like, no, you know, it's dumb, but it's kind of fun. And honestly, that's, like, part of the best that you can hope for from this show. With all the just boring shit that has happened in this show, having a fun episode that's like, hey, what if we just, you know, create a character and give them our everything-proof shield? I'm like, no, I'm not such a fucking prude. I can have fun with this. And is it anything amazing? No. Would it be easy to compare this to, like, one of the Fast and Furious movies? Fuck yeah. But did I have fun? Kind of. It's kind of like the rest of the season, right? Like, I don't think it's anything amazing, but it's okay. And yeah, I guess that's how I feel about What If as a whole. Like, it's nothing amazing, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fun. Like, there are some good moments here. It's nothing great, but I just think the inherent show itself is flawed. So we were never going to get any, right? Like, this is, like, not the best that we can hope for. I definitely do think they could do better than this, but I also think they could do a fuck lot worse than this. Every episode could have been that Nebula episode. I guess there was also a canceled episode that was, like, a really serious, like, Spider-Man episode. That was, like, the Children of Men, but Spider-Man. I don't know how I feel about that. They bring back the zombies again, and right, we see zombie Scarlet Witch again, who's cool. I don't know, man, I thought it was okay. Like, yeah, you know, it's not anything amazing, but, like, as popcorn, there is so much worse popcorn I could be watching. I could be watching fucking Keeping Up with the Kardashians, man. No, I think this is fine. I thought it was a fine episode. I thought it was honestly, the only episode I really dislike is the first episode. Other than that, I think the rest of it's fine. Would I actively watch any of this again? Probably not. Like, I probably won't ever think about the show again. Or, you know, I probably won't, like, ever rewatch these shows or anything like that. But for what it was, yeah, sure. And then they did immediately confirm, hey, guess what, we are doing a third season. Which, to be fair, I actually do want. I still feel like this show has potential. There are still ideas they haven't done yet. So I feel like a third idea is a good idea. What the fuck are they doing with a third season? Any episode predictions? No fucking idea. The two I always say, right, it's what if the other side won, right? What if the other side was snapped? I also saw the other idea I always kind of liked is the what if Pietro didn't die in Age of Ultron, and that, you know, puts them on opposite sides during Civil War. I feel like that's an inherently interesting idea, but we'll see if they actually do that. They've done 2 Captain Carter episodes. I totally see them doing Captain Carter Civil War. Right? If you're gonna do the original, if you're gonna do Winter Soldier, you might as well do Civil War. The one thing, Captain Carter's team has the Wasp on it. Like, there is a Wasp in Captain Carter's Avengers. So, we'll see where they go with that. The one clip they showed was Bucky and the Red Guardian. What are they doing? No idea. It was just Bucky, I think it's Bucky and the Red Guardian teaming up, doing some sort of infiltration mission in America. Does it sound like a good idea? Not really, but I'll see where they go with it. You know, I'm not writing anything off. Because you never know when you might, again, Party Thor. I did not think Party Thor was going to be a good episode. And I enjoy the crap out of that episode. I think it is so much fun. And that's kind of also what I just want fun. Right? Children of Men Spider-Man doesn't really appeal to me. Because I want, like, fun shit. You know? That's kind of the inherent... Right? The 2 goals of What If should be to have fun and to not be racist, sexist, or homophobic. And I feel like they're doing okay on both those goals. Again, depending on who you ask about Captain Carter, they're failing at the second goal. But... yeah. I don't know. It was fine. It was fine. And then I know Echo premieres in the next 2 weeks, and people actually seem to be excited for that, mainly because it's rated R, but, you know, I think it has potential. I said it at the time Hawkeye was airing, and I'll stand by it now. I think Echo has potential. It's just, what do they do with the character? That's the question. And then the last thing I got... Oh my god, I did not expect to go for 2 hours tonight. The last thing I got tonight is, I'm in love with the villainess. Does Mario want... I'll do you one better. What does Mario wonder? Why does Mario wonder? Who does Mario wonder? So there's an anime called I'm in Love with the Villainess. And I had heard about it before. I had been recommended the manga. How does Mario wonder? With a nice cool tea on a summer day. With a nice glass of iced tea, because he's from New York. New York. So I had been recommended this manga, and I just never got around to reading it. I had been recommended it, and I had never gotten around to it. So when I saw the anime was airing, I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll check this out. You know, I'd recently watched the other Villainous, right? The, what was it? God, I even looked it up recently. I'm in love with the villain. I'm taming the final boss. Whatever the fuck it was called. I had sat down and I had watched it, and I was like, you know, this was fine. But I had heard good things about this one. So this is an isekai, right? Where the girl she used to play this dating sim. I think it was called Revolution. But, you know, she died, and now she's in the dating sim. But because she's gay, she doesn't want to date any of the dating sim characters. Instead, she wants to date the main girl, Miss Claire. So, you know, it's about her professing her love to Miss Claire, being turned down. You know, she gets kicked in the face, and then her response isn't, "Stop bullying me, Miss Claire." Her response is, "Harder. Harder." And it's like, okay, that's fucking funny. But I think the show really works because of its main character. Right? That's why I like the, Ray Taylor is, I think, the character's name. I like Ray Taylor. She's fucking weird. She's funny, right? Her devotion to Miss Claire is nigh universal. And it just works really well. Full spoilers ahead, I guess. But, Right, she uses her knowledge of the game to, you know, she's trying to, like, protect Miss Claire. Like, at one point, Manticore or a Chimera, again, I kind of can't remember which, shows up, and she tells the maid, like, hey, you have to protect Miss Claire from this Manticore, or else it will kill her. And then, surprise, surprise, you find out the maid's actually working for the villain, because the villain's her brother. So it's like, okay, you know, that's interesting. But, so in the last, like, 4 episodes of the show, they introduced this princess character. And, you know, the princess is childhood friends with Miss Claire. But then she becomes romantic rivals, right? Like, the main character doesn't like the character just because, like, right, she sees her as, like, oh, she's getting too close. But then, no, it's, like, straight up, like, this other character is also gay, and she wants Miss Claire as well. And it's like, oh, but what I'm more like, something I hate about isekais. Honestly, I don't know if I'd say it's the biggest problem with isekais. But a problem with isekais is that, right, the main character is OP. I don't have a problem with the main character being OP. My problem, though, is that OP is boring, right? If they're just winning every fight, defeating every enemy, that gets boring after a while. So instead, what these shows need to do is they need to introduce a character who is just as OP as the protagonist to come in and humble the protagonist to make them grow. Of course, because most isekais are power fantasies, they will never do that. Right? The main character will never learn a lesson. They will never grow. This is the exception. The main character, right, this princess comes in and fucking kicks her teeth in, humbles her, and is like, hey, I beat you once, now I'm gonna take your girl. If I'm gonna fight you again, but if you lose the second time, you're mine as well. Like, you're gonna become my love slave. And I'm like, oh, you're finally some fucking stakes, man. Of course, OP main character still is OP main character. But I love them actually putting some stakes on it. Especially when you find out at the end, the princess right, because, like, in the video game, the princess exists to help the player character. And turns out it's the same way here, right? All the stuff the princess did was just to help the main character. And I'm like, oh, that's clever, you know, right? Because eventually right after everything that's happened, the princess reveals that she's also fallen in love with the main character. And I'm like, okay, you know, that actually kind of works. Like, in the end, I feel like that all actually kind of worked out. And then, of course, you find out what I had figured out all along. Is that, no, at the right, part of the reason why the main character is so protective of Miss Claire is because after all is said and done, because the game is called Revolution. So, of course, there is a revolution in the game, that being overthrowing the bourgeoisie class. And since Miss Claire is a member of the bourgeoisie, that means she is going to die as well. So, eventually you come to that conclusion that that's what's going to happen. And I'm like, okay, you know, I do have some of the manga. So I'm like, you know, I guess I do have to finally pick that up and start reading it. But for, like, the 12 episodes of the anime, I was decently invested. You know, I decently enjoyed my time. So yeah, I guess that's what I gotta say on that. I had a pretty decent time, and I'm excited for more. You know, whenever that happens. But we've got a while. Because, again, the show just finished airing, like, in December. But, you know, I can always pick up the manga. And, yeah, I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else. At least I can't think of anything else. Give me a second. Alright, oops. I need more water. Do we finish this tonight? You know what, whatever. So, yeah, you know, I guess let's just go to the outro. Yeah, you know, I honestly, I did not expect to go for 2 hours tonight. So in the future, what do I expect in the future? So, we'll finish this off another day. Maybe not next week, but the week after. Because next week is, I think, the Splatfest. I think the Splatfest is next week. Either the Splatfest is next week or the week after. If the Splatfest is next week, we will do the Splatfest next week. The holiday themed Splatfest. If the Splatfest is not next week, we'll finish this off next week, and then we'll just play some Splatoon or whatever. We don't, like you saw, we don't have, much left. Yeah, we're here in Season 5. Honestly, Season 5's not going to be much different. The only reason we're doing Mario Wonder tonight is because I still have Mario Wonder to do. I don't know how different things will be, but that's just kind of how it is at the moment. But yeah, so we've got that. We've got Splatfest and Splatoon. We'll do other stuff as time goes on, But we're mostly going to stick to... we've still got at least another 9 months of Splatfests. So I expect to do another 9 months of Splatfests. I would love if they did more than that. And I'm still hoping for the Splatoon DLC in February. Late February, early March. But we'll see. So that's coming up in the future. Yeah, what else? We don't really have... I don't know, we're at the beginning, so I'll be honest, I've been doing this show for 5 years, well, technically longer than 5 years now, so it's something like that. And as a result, we've seen a lot, we've done a lot. January is always a dead month, right? We went for an hour and an hour 50 tonight, almost 2 hours. But that's because I had a lot of WIBE stuff because of Christmas. We talked about What If for 50 minutes. I don't know how much we're gonna have for the rest of the year, or for the next January. Usually the first big event of the year is the February Nintendo Direct. That's usually the first big direct. That's usually the first big event of the year. And I don't even know if we're getting a February Direct this year because of what's it called? Because of the Nintendo Switch 2. I honestly could see Nintendo holding off on a February Direct because they're saving something to announce the Nintendo Switch 2, and then instead we get a Direct in April, after the Switch 2 has been announced. I don't know, maybe not. The Nintendo Switch 2 will definitely be announced before June. I'm saying that right now, it will be announced before June. The June Direct at the latest, but I bet one day we're just going to randomly log on Twitter, or X. I'm still not going to stop dead naming Twitter. Twitter is the only thing it is okay to dead name. And so we're going to one day randomly log on Twitter, and it's going to be hey, tune in 48 hours for a special Nintendo announcement, and that's going to be the Switch 2. And then we're gonna and then in June we'll have the Nintendo Direct, which will, but I could see them revealing Metroid Prime 4 soon. And then just being hey, this comes out in October. And then guess what? Switch 2 also comes out in October. I could realistically see that being a thing. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But no, January is always dead month. Other things coming up in the near future. So over on my main YouTube channel, link in the description below, ? I did put out the Pikmin video today. Right? We played Pikmin 4 a while ago, and I had been meaning to put out a video on Pikmin 4. I just hadn't done it up until this point. But I finally sat down this week with, some time off from Christmas and everything. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to edit this Pikmin video. So I edited the first part of the Pikmin video. It covers everything from the start of the game to rescuing Olimar. And I am currently working on the second part, which will cover everything from you know, going back to PNF 404 to the final boss. So that's coming in the future. But the first part of that is available now. And yeah, I think that's all I've got for today. So I guess with that, I guess that's where we're going to end off. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, I think that's all I've got. So with that, yeah, I'll continue that later. I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.